Woo! Well, he is
Awesome,
one of the best
Franz.
attorneys in Baton Rouge. Well, heck, in all of the USA. He is a regular on Court TV, as well as various other news outlets. He's awesome on Talk 107.3 with Brian Haldane. He visits churches. He's great on Twitter. He is the fantastic Viscount Franz Borghardt. Alongside a Tier D podcast, Hall of Famer, the Pride of Atlanta, also tearing it up on Court TV, CNN, ATL News One, and a million other places. You know him as one of the smartest people in show business. You know him as being amazing on social media. You know him as the incredible Colonel Joshua Schiffer, joined for the
Yeah.
first time by legendary attorney coming to us from the city that never sleeps. Laying down trial lawyering like none other, he is a legal analyst on the Law Crime Network, Court TV, News Nation, and a number of other places. A podcast host himself and a vice chair of litigation. He is the great Rich Schoenstein. That's Schoenstein.
Showtime!
That was
Showtime!
good. That was good. A plus.
Now, we always usually do a little bit of food stuff here, but because both of the guys on the left-hand side of the screen are from the South, we usually end up talking about fried chicken, where we know
I might have a salad with some chicken hidden on it. No, sorry.
with a New Yorker here, we obviously got to talk a little bit of pizza. So I know we've talked about toppings before. Rich, where is the best joint in New York to get pizza, and what are the best toppings?
So there's good pizza all over New York. I'm not gonna isolate any place because one, I don't have a financial investment in pizza and I don't want to leave anybody out. But I'm a pepperoni guy. Like I like a heavily pepperoni pizza. And just to be clear, I like the kind of pepperoni that pulls up so that it holds a little bit of grease in it like a bowl. That's the way pepperoni is meant to sit on a pizza.
Pepperoni. Now, here's the key New York pizza question, which you can answer. It used to be back in New York that there were a bunch of locally owned dollar slice places that just littered the city. And was it the best? No, but it was still a New York slice, and it was a buck, and it was everywhere. Last time I was
Huge.
in the city, I found those home run local, they're gone. And they've been replaced with a whole bunch of people that, in my opinion, are like basically buying frozen pizza and selling them for $1.25 to $2 a slice. Has the era of good neighborhood, easy, cheap pizza is just over, and now it's inedible or really good? Is there anything in the middle anymore?
No. There's still some mom and pop pizza shops, but it's like Josh, it's like everything. It's like bookstores. It's like grocery stores. It's like department stores, right? They're all eaten up by the big chain. So that is true of pizza, but there are still some.
See, when I was a boy, sorry, I will.
Back in my no, you see what the thing is this generation now. We always call it this candy ass millennial generation. Slid in there with their father's money, and they're making artisanal hand pressed pizzas,
So,
selling it for
so hold on.
$9 a
Hold
slice.
on. There's nothing wrong with a good Neapolitan style pizza. However, the problem is I have never been to New York City and had a giant slice of pizza that I had to fold over off a street vendor. And the only way I'm going to get that now is if I buy a whole pizza and obnoxiously cut the pizza and then fold that one piece, because it's not going to happen now, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
See,
No,
back in my
you
day,
can buy
you had to eat the
slices.
you had to eat the pizza in the first 20 minutes, or else the grease would melt through the box and it would ruin the coffee table. That's your greasy pepperoni.
Franz, there are still the classics like John's on Bleak. Like there are still those legendary places to buy the big foldy floppy slice. But the one big issue is that there's so much more demand for the good ones. They make more money selling whole pies and doing delivery. They don't rely as much on the walk-in paper plate or just a few napkins, dollar slice, and you walk out. That was the foldable, 18 to 20-inch pie, cut into eighths. I just think that pizza is not gonna exist as much anymore. I love the freaking artisanal pizzas. I'm very lucky. We live next to one of the first families that brought the instant cook Neapolitan style double zero flour that cooks for 90 seconds, and you get the char blistery, and you got to eat it right then because it doesn't travel 50 feet before it loses its consist. Man, that's the best dang thing you'll ever stick in your mouth. Sorry, everybody.
That's going to be the name of the podcast.
Yeah, best
That
thing
was so hot.
with
That was so hot.
yeah, hot. But
It'll be
those
Rich's
things
hair
are
and the
great.
best thing you've ever stuck in your mouth.
Rich, what's your top 5 New York restaurant right now? Just gut shot. Doesn't have to be fancy, doesn't have to be cheap. 5 places that you are like, hey, you're coming to the city. Here are the 5 rich joints.
So I have to break this to you.
It's not New York City.
I have to break this to you.
You're a
because
vegan.
No. I still have children at home. I have a very busy job. I go out to eat approximately never.
You just ruined the
way you-
fantasy.
I'm
That's
the
kind of a
last
waste.
Ruined the
person.
fantasy.
I'm the last person you should ask about eating out. Here's the
Is
thing
that
about
how you got
restaurants.
the hair? Like, did you make a deal with Satan where it was like, listen, I will not eat awesome food, but you're going to give me the hair, right? Like, I get
Yeah.
Satan's.
That would be the
I
best.
don't really like restaurants.
Rich should be like, I live next to one of the best restaurants in the world.
Literally, Rick's
No.
like, yeah, I live next to La Bernardine.
Oh,
Hair lives on my hallway. Like,
I've been to
Hold
La
on.
Bernardine. It's fine.
Rich, do you live in the city or do you
Yeah.
live outside of the city? Okay,
No,
so
we
you
live
live
down-
in.
Yeah.
Okay. That's like a wasted talent, dude. You're in the epicenter of amazingly good food, and you're like, yeah, I don't like to eat out.
yeah, listen, when Franz, as an adult, found his but reinvigorated his faith of the things he gave up, he replaced with dreaming about eating in New York. So every night, half an hour before sleep, it's all about.
Here's the funny thing: if I were to go to New York, I am a foodie, but if I were to go to New York, I would want to know the dive places the locals go. Like, I want something out of a Billy Joel song, bottle of red, bottle of whites, whatever mood you're in tonight. Like, I want to go to that Italian restaurant.
It's called Rayo's. You can't get a reservation. It's overrated. And really, a red sauce joint, you're going to get a better red sauce joint outside of Manhattan than in it.
Rayo's red sauce is absolutely incredible. It just tastes like childhood.
It's great, but again, they chained it out a little bit, and I imagine it's lost.
So point is, if I were to go to the city and I were to have like 6 good meals or 8 good meals, it would be at places that like people be like, you went where? Because I want to go to those kind of places, right? Yeah, sure. I want to go to the hard to get reservation places.
You're not going to go to Wendy's. I wonder what a Wendy's in New York is like.
A Manhattan burger.
Franz is going to end up next to the basketball court in Brooklyn eating street vendor with the arepa lady and be like, that was the greatest thing I ever ate. And he's probably right, because some of those local.
Josh and I in New York City, let's go to Harlem. Let's go eat food in Harlem.
Harlem's too expensive, man. Harlem's you can't buy a place in Harlem for less than a couple $1,000,000.
That's true. You guys come to town, I'll find you something to eat.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just going to switch off of Harlem pizza for a second, because you guys actually, Josh and Rich, have something in common where last fall, the whole Donald Trump thing had completely screwed the Georgia legal system there for a few months. Rich, are you noticing you've got a little bit of that there now with all the stuff going on with Trump?
Well, it drew a lot of attention. I don't know what you mean by it screwed the legal system. I thought actually the New York legal system came out looking pretty good. Case went to trial, had a very good judge conduct a very fair trial, had a jury come in, render a verdict that was supported by the evidence. And, he got convicted, and the walls of the court didn't fall down. Justice didn't fall apart. Nothing blew up. I thought it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, what I meant by screwed was they had quite the backlog just because of setting this up and security and all that. Like, again, we talked with Josh, with Cheryl McCollum and stuff, and they said there was a huge backlog where the stuff, just because they were dealing with the.
Well, that's true. I was on trial when the last Trump trial started, and going down the court the first few days he was on trial was an entirely new experience, because there were police blockades. You could only go down certain roads. It was quite something. And then over the course of the trial, it kind of calmed down a little bit. The crowds weren't really that big down there protesting or anything. The Trump crowds are never as big as someone might tell you.
Yeah,
Huge.
yeah.
Well,
Huge.
Cameras
is it
usually
like-
just zoom in on the most entertaining group of 10 people, makes it look like there's a crowd.
Well, I think it was like the end of the first week or the beginning of the second week, and they panned out because there was an expected crush, and it was this very sad, like 3 people that were all that I don't think even liked each other, and they were in that little cordon, and it was like that's the crap. And I thought it was going to be more than 3, like that. That's just ridiculous. I want to say something that Rich alluded to. The ability of New York to have this trial as cleanly as they did, that's a pretty monumental thing. I don't think many other systems would have been able to handle just the sheer complexity of putting on that trial, dealing with the attack. Man, there were attacks come out of nowhere. You'd get Secret Service involved with the sheriff. That was extraordinarily impressive.
I love jury selection more than any other part of the trial. I have a fantasy about being a defense attorney for Trump and having to pick a jury for Trump and what that would look like. And having to look at the potential jurors and be like, look, I'm going to be real honest with you. A lot of people don't like my client.
I enjoyed people criticizing that jury selection was too fast in the case.
Go to federal court.
That is a joke. I have never, and I've been in cases with celebrities. I've never had 3 days of jury selection in my
That's
life.
amazing. 3 days?
I
That's
think it was 3
amazing.
days.
I had jury selection last a week and a half on a drug trafficking case. The trial lasted only 4 days. We had a week and a half of jury selection.
All smoke, no fire.
Yeah. Hey,
Dude.
Rich, this is the thing that I'm so glad that we got, because I can ask you this because I keep getting asked, and I've got some friends in New York, but you the man. When it comes to sentencing, 34 felonies, they're all paperwork felonies. They're a first offender with a public service record. If you're not Donald Trump and it doesn't relate to an election fraud, but for whatever reason they chose to prosecute these cases, which is a little bit rare. Regular Joe and Jane, upper middle class, what do they look like for a sentence? Like, I'm just trying to figure out what the baseline, because in my county, Fulton County, Georgia, any non-violent felony and a hell of a lot of violent ones, you're getting 5 years of probation. Like,
So
that's
let me ask you a question, Josh, about your hypothetical. And your
Yeah.
hypothetical is your ordinary Joe contrite and apologetic?
kind of what I want to know is like,
Has
An absolute
has
fucking
your
nightmare.
ordinary Joe, hold on, has your ordinary Joe violated a court order 10 times? Has your ordinary Joe gone out publicly and attacked the court
oh,
and
my
the
name.
judge and the jurors and the process and the prosecutors as all being wrongful actors?
Yeah.
So can I put a cherry on top of that question for both of you guys? Does Georgia and New York use sentencing guidelines, or is it complete discretion of the court?
There are guidelines in New York, but he's got a lot of discretion. By the way, I don't think he's going to put him in jail.
I don't either.
I'd be shocked.
Just for
I'd
note,
be
for
shocked.
Georgia, we don't do pre-sentencing reports. If the judge after the conviction, the judge can basically say, "All right, I'm ready," and they get to pretty much decide how sentencing happens. You
Oh,
gotta
can
be
you?
fair, so if you're going to open it up to one, you got to open it up to both.
But
But the judge literally, it's like, all right, the code says punishable by 1 to 10, so that's it, man. Judge gets it. Wide discretion.
Can you imagine him at a colloquy though?
Oh,
Oh,
I have 2 judges that sit next to each other in the same building that you would get 2 completely different sentences on every case every day of the week. And it's little thing. It's weed. Ounce of weed in one judge, man, dismiss it. That's dumb. Shouldn't be prosecuted. Next door, ounce of weed. I can give you up to 5 years for that. And I'm going to give
But you know what, though? Once again, like we talked about when this whole thing started, even in Georgia and especially in New York, what is he at since that came down? 220, maybe $240 million raised. You put him in jail, there'll be $1 billion for him to run that campaign with.
So for your listeners, a colloquy is generally that part of the sentencing where the judge says, "Hey, Mr. Schiffer, you got anything to say for yourself?" And most judges, I can't speak for Georgia, can't speak for New York, but most Georgia judges will understand that if it's a case that may be appealed, that the defendant may exercise silence at the sentencing, to not show contrition, to not show anything, because the case is going to be appealed. However, can you imagine him at sentencing saying this was entirely rigged? It was rigged.
More money.
Oh,
I expect him, every defendant is given an opportunity to speak. I don't know of a single jurisdiction that would prevent the convicted defendant from speaking. How and when that lands, and the intent of Judge Merchan, who I've never met and have nothing except what the media's report, that's to me super fascinating, because you're right. Donald Trump turns this into PR that benefits him because he does that better than anybody.
It works both ways.
Yeah, he could be caught doing the worst things imaginable. That dude can win the PR battle sometimes, or at least.
By the way, Judge Merchan, who's supposed to be a left-wing stooge, you guys know he was appointed by Michael Bloomberg, right?
I keep telling people, I'm like, this guy's apparently not the super progressive on that bench. He's
not at all. Not at all. He's a very reasonable guy. He's been around for a while. He was a Bloomberg appointee back when Bloomberg was a Republican. Now, I take the point that Bloomberg's traveled around a bit.
Yeah.
So is there an appellate bond option for this guy, for this hypothetical defendant? Is there an appellate bond scenario? Because the appeal is going to go on for how long?
Ever.
Well, the appeal. So here's the funny thing about the appeal. He could appeal right now. Like, he doesn't have to wait for sentencing. He could have gone to the appellate division. He could have that appeal. He could brief that appeal, and he could have that appeal heard in September and decided before the election. And I think they are purposefully not doing that. They are purposefully waiting. They're going to brief this appeal, later, and have it decided, later. Later, like after the election.
Beautiful, just beautiful.
So, but I think if the judge gave him jail time and they said, Judge, stay the jail time until after the election and/or after the appeal, I think the judge would grant that.
Yeah.
Judge ain't going to put this guy in jail during the election. No way.
Rich is hitting my exact same high point. I think it would be basically a crime against America to incarcerate him immediately before before an election. I think that even substantially restricting his travel, people are talking house arrest, is ostensibly the same thing. Ain't gonna happen, because the expected and foreseeable consequences are indefensibly bad for the safety of our nation as a whole.
Is there also, I don't want to be responsible for this depending on what happens. So maybe you do just pass it down the line a bit and then, revisit it in December sort of thing.
Well,
he's having a sentencing hearing on July 11th. I mean, I think he's supposed to make a decision.
That's what I've literally been reserved by a couple of networks all day on July 11th, because that's the day it's supposed to be happening.
So Derek, these two guys are heavy hitters.
Oh,
Rich is gonna be on like
Josh, yes, not me. I'm not there yet.
No, it's gonna be fascinating though, because the whole nation's gonna be watching on it. There's going to be knee-jerk reactions of all type, like the reaction volatility is going to be at a peak. Trump will find a way to remessage whatever happens in a way that benefits him, just as Biden will. It just won't be nearly as good, because Biden doesn't do that stuff particularly well. And Donald Trump, I feel, has almost no likelihood of going to jail. And the timing, like Rich was just talking about, the November election, it all hinges on the November election. Everything to do to prevent and muddle before November. That's the goal.
Here's another question. Do you think if Donald Trump gets probation, do you think he is a soul who can make it through start to finish probation without getting revoked? No way. No way. Can't make it through probation.
Wouldn't make it through the first day.
Well, hold on. The thing is, right, he should be treated just the same as everybody. He did his pre-sentencing interview by Zoom. He's going to do his probation check-ins by Zoom. He's not going to
Okay.
be held to the standards that a street level drug dealer would, who, by the way, would have been in jail already for violating a court order 10 times.
He never would have been let out on bond after the first couple of hiccups, and he would have been fighting that case from inside Rikers the entire time.
Right. The rules are not the same.
But I'm going to say, I think he aces probation. Want to know why? Probation ain't that hard. Our clients that screw up probation, while it's certainly setting you up for failure, it's more because of our clients' sophistication than anything else. If probation wants to mess with you, absolutely they can. But my standard first lifetime screw up on probation, man, they never violate.
Well, it's a paper crime. You're not worried about Donald. You're not worried about Donald Trump on the side of the street slinging crack.
He's already gotten out of the drug testing. Remember, that was one of the interesting parts of the pre-sentence. During that, there was a specific exemption made for drug testing, and he has been exempted from that as far as I understand. Which that's something that I have big problems with, because in Georgia, drug testing is basically mandatory no matter what your case is, and that's dumb. Because if you get arrested for no license, you shouldn't have to have a drug test.
Well, you know, Franz, to your point about not being worried about repeat criminal conduct, he has been convicted of committing fraud in an effort to subvert a federal election. And now he is participating in another federal election. And he says the conviction is wrongful. He didn't do anything wrong. He's not contrite, as I've said. So don't we think he's likely to commit some form of the same crime again in the next 6 months?
Just
So
a
I don't
quick
think
question. Sorry, just a quick question on that, Rich. Is this because he's Donald Trump thing, or is this because he's got money thing? Like, is this something that you've come across before, where you have some other billionaire that's up there that's just, the rules don't apply to him just because he can cough up money, or is this a particular because he's Trump he can get away with?
Are you asking why he was prosecuted?
No, I'm just asking why he seems to be getting special treatment. Is it a money thing or is it a Trump thing?
He's listen, so I can say this because this is something I can say as a New Yorker. He has had every break his whole life. He was handed millions of dollars by his slumlord dad. He has made the ugliest, most awful buildings in New York. He has avoided creditors. He's taken advantage of the courts his whole adult life to fend off creditors and make money. He went into bankruptcy multiple times to avoid paying people he owed money. He's gotten every break in the courts time and time and time again. And so for him now to badmouth the courts as being unfair is absolutely absurd to me. He has gotten every benefit his whole life to get where he is.
So here's
my personal relations with Mr. Trump go back to my childhood. And when I was a child, my best friend's family they owned a small business that did telephones and fundraising and communications traditionally for theaters and the arts community. They were contracted by Mr. Trump during his XFL years. And every memory I have of Donald Trump was how no matter what, Donald Trump was going to rip you off, rob you, bury you with lawyers, and destroy you and walk away with your family being a smoking mess. And it was so blatant that it was just horrifying. And apparently that has been his road to success. I go in, everybody loves me, I make all the deals, I take all the money, and then I burn everybody on the way out of town. And that lasted all the way through basically his entire cabinet, of which only Ben Carson still supports him. One guy.
Yeah.
So here's my question. So here's my question. You, Rich, you're a New Yorker. I get it. What is the collective sentiment towards him, though? Is it a shared sentiment to what you just said, or is it like, because it seems like you either love him or hate him, right? And I don't know if it's different because you're in New York that you either love him or hate him. Is it like, what's it like there?
Well, so, I mean, obviously he does very poorly in New York, and especially in New York City. Listen,
Right.
we're very liberal, so we don't agree with the politics that he's adopted in order to get where he is, which were not necessarily his politics the whole way. It is
He does flip flop occasionally.
right. His name has been scrubbed off of most of the buildings that used to be on in New York City.
Up here
So
too.
all these buildings that said Trump that no longer say Trump. People don't want to be associated with him. Fewer people want to do business with him. And I don't think he has very much political support, at least in New York City.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's
And look-
slide. Let's slide down the street over to Boston. And I thought we were gonna have something on the Reed case yesterday or today, but I guess it's still a little bit.
Oh, there's big.
slow-moving.
Oh, there's big stuff happening in the Reed case today.
Every day.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, because I know Rich, you were watching today. Josh, I don't know if you were or not.
Yeah.
So basically, the judge declares a discovery violation by the defense, and they are in the process of voir direing 1, 2, 3 defense experts. The first one is the dog bite expert. One of them is the reconstruction expert, and one of them is the biomechanical expert. The latter 2 experts are independent experts contracted by the Department of Justice, right? And the first expert, the dog bite expert, she's special. That we can talk about that if you want to. And let me say this. What's really, really, really interesting is the self-righteousness that is happening in the courtroom today. I mean, it generally happens but like today, the comments like, I'm shocked, Judge, I'm offended, Judge, it has been just beautiful.
The little bit that I saw was when she was talking about this discovery violations, and they have different terms and rules for all their stuff. But as I understand, discovery was supposed to be complete generally prior to trial and witness lists and all that. And some witness reports were just not provided, I think, by both sides, because I know it shocks everybody here. Surprise witnesses are oftentimes brought by different parties in order to screw up or fix something that happened before. And that's what I saw a pretty good sized argument about. Y'all didn't tell each other who you were going to use with enough time. My solution to that, the remedy is that nobody comes in.
Well, the dog bite expert testified that she did not do a report. She tried to say she didn't have enough time, but when asked about that, she said, the judge asked her, well, how long does it take to do a report? She's like, well, I didn't do a report.
Yeah, she didn't do a report, and the story is that she was reading about this case and she reached out to the defense team because she had some opinions about it, and she never examined the wounds and she never examined the dog, but she wants to come into court and say it was a dog bite.
A quick question for you, Rich. You guys were just saying with surprise witnesses and all that. Is that something you keep in your pocket in case you think you start to lose? Like, is that a grasping at straws moment, or is it
That's a very risky strategy because you can get the witness bounced for not disclosing them.
If that was part of your beginning strategy, you're assuming an enormous amount of risk.
Yeah,
that is you're going to lose. You know you're going to lose. So we're going to try this ridiculous, borderline unethical or fully unethical trick play during the trial. Is the state had a witness that brought something up. This new area requires a previously undisclosed or disclosed but not called witness, because really you should be telling them what experts you could call, and you're supposed to disclose that. Even if they're not on your official witness list, this is a person that I might call. You got to give notice of that. With the issue being these kind of voir dires. What happens if one of these witnesses gets up and just gets eviscerated by the opposing counsel or the judge, like Rich just said? That witness is bounced. There ain't no backups to the secret witness.
Right. So most states have a rule there that the defense has to disclose like expert witnesses within a certain time frame, right?
Yeah, that of course that comes in coverage, right?
Right. It's not trial by surprise.
Ambush.
And ambush. And by the way, the guys just stated it succinctly and correct. if you've got a great expert, why the hell are you sitting on that great expert? Like, and look, the DOJ contracted guys from what's the name of the organization that they're with? I can't think of it. It starts with an A. Those guys are solid. I think they're good guys. I mean, I think they're going to be good witnesses. The dog bite one, I'm like, once she testified that she basically solicited by third party the defense, and the defense team was like, we've never met her before. Huh? What?
I do got to say something though with that. There is a benefit, however slight, to the almost lack of respect of the Commonwealth's case by being willing to call some random ass person from, hey, this is such a dumb case. Man, this person who's a dog bite expert just came up involved. Ma'am, we didn't call you. We didn't ask you anything. You reached out because you're an independent dog expert and you saw that this was wrong, right? Tell us why. And it's a throwaway because it's part of the defense. No burden on the defense. Don't have to prove jack squat. This is about throwing more twigs on the fire, preventing reasonable doubt from ever getting established. And now we have a fully fledged conspiracy theory. We have conflicts with the actual physical evidence. We're going to get more conflicts from the medical examiners. The fact that there are going to be multiple medical examiners brings up my same problem with the multiple experts the other day, which I think if you have to call 3 experts for one issue, that's a sign of weakness. And we haven't even gotten to the defense presentation. There is a ton of pathways for any juror to find reasonable doubt. Question is, do they maintain that, or does the defense overplay the case and insult the jury into convicting Karen?
So I want to ask you a strategy question, Josh.
Yeah.
You're the guy I want to ask this question. Franz, you can chime in too, of course. So this case is problematic for the prosecution because the investigation was flawed. I think there's no other way to say it. The investigators are flawed. We've got those horrible text messages from the one guy. No one ever looked in the house. I mean, good Lord, if somebody had only peeked inside of the house, this case might be over. Nobody ever did that. I don't know why. They waited to talk to witnesses. But I've been fascinated since this case started that the defense lawyer stood up in opening argument and the first words out of his mouth were Karen Reed was framed. Not
Think for the fences.
Reasonable doubt, not this was a crappy investigation, but she was framed. And I thought, why are you taking on that burden of proof? What do you think about that?
It's a bold risk, Cotton. Absolutely, because you're right. That's as aggressive as I've ever seen a defense come out. And, it is an affirmative defense of conspiracy, of cover-up. It's not the traditional, I didn't do it, it wasn't me, he needed killing. It's very much, these other people are crooks. I think it did a very good job establishing the tone and tenure of the case from the very beginning. Literally, like you said, the first thing they heard out of the defense was Karen Reed was framed. That's a really huge flag planted, and it did the burden shifting that I think has really benefited Jackson Yannetti, because as you've seen, Adam Lally, who's a good lawyer, who I believe got absolutely hosed for the exact reasons Rich mentioned, terrible investigation. If a cop's dead, everybody gets searched. Within, as far as going, everybody's on the case. You don't get dead cop cases without an investigation that they're only going to tell you half of what they actually investigated, because they're going to do all the illegal stuff. They just ain't going to share that. So Lally got this hot, steaming, bad, high-profile case that the jury already knew about going in, and the defense, in the first words, pushed back on the state so strongly the defense the state Commonwealth has been on its back feet the entire trial.
But why did Lally take that bait? Why did Lally not put on in 3 days evidence that he was hit with a car?
Absolute. I disagree with the tactics Lally has used, but I also don't question whether Lally is to some degree, and this is absolutely speculation on my behalf, almost sandbagging this case, because he ain't going anywhere. He's the local prosecutor. He wants to be the judge. This case is an albatross that he hated from the beginning, in my opinion. And it wouldn't be the worst thing for him not to go to the ends of the earth on a bad case with bad cops that's going to hang him forever. If he does a acceptably minimal job and the defense walks all over him, he gets to say for the rest of his life, unfortunately, we didn't have the factual scenario that would have made for a strong case, and I did the best we could with a really difficult and necessary trial. Unfortunately, we lost, but I'm glad our system works. Thanks so much. I think it's Lally defensively protecting himself and Canton ongoing, even though it means he's almost certainly going to lose this case.
Are you saying he's lollygagging?
Oh,
Brilliant.
So I'm gonna say this because this is the one thing we haven't talked about yet. Is the other thing that happened today was she gave a press conference. Karen gave a press conference in real time about her thoughts of where the case is. She is now doubling down on. I'm prefacing, guys. So for all the viewers who are going to get angry with me, I want to testify, but it's up to my attorneys, which is absolutely true and absolutely false at the same time. Yeah. Yep.
When Trump said I didn't like it either, because it was like, no, dude, everybody gets to testify in court. You want your day in court? That's one thing I can guarantee.
It is.
Every judge will give you a day in court.
It is, in fact, the one decision she gets to make in the process.
In Georgia, that is, you have, and the judge is going to put that shit on, pardon my language, on the record clearly. That not only does the defendant know that the judge is independently inquired with the defendant in front of their lawyer, that their lawyer did the job and explained to them everything. That's how serious it is in Georgia.
So I have not seen a prosecution in quite some time where it was more reactive than we're the state, we're the Commonwealth. Look, the defense is doing what they need to do, guys. That's their job, and we understand that. It's all smoke and mirrors, and that's all great and fine. Here are the facts. And then if you, on the back end of your case in chief, if you want to put on certain things that show, look, they said conspiracy, but guys, look, the Google search really shows this. Celebrate really shows this. Like, do that on the back end, and all of a sudden you're not giving credence because everything that's prime, that's imprinting on the jury is front end, right? I don't understand why they tried the case the way he did. Now, that being said, he did get some shitty cards. Lally has gotten some shitty cards. I mean, that's...
Well, and it's almost like a counterpunch. The stronger the defense goes, and I think this is what Franz was referring to, the more opportunity the Commonwealth has to be like, whoa, check out how crazy ass the defense is. Do you think they'd be doing all this if they were really innocent? Like you get to complete the circle or crash the wave, jump the shark. And on the other side of that is, why are Jackson and Yannetti doing a Emmy-winning EGOT, Oscar, when this is local theater, man? We did not need this. Why are they doing that? Doesn't that make you almost more cynical and suspicious, jurors?
I believe that they're doing what they're doing because that was the narrative that was created before the trial even started. And they put themselves in that boat to a certain degree, third-party defense. And now they're stuck with it. But to double down in the opening is crazy, right? They couldn't just, Rich could just as easily defend this case and say, yeah, guys, look, this is why they think that she hit him with a car. And here's the evidence that shows she didn't hit him with a car.
But if you're explaining, you're losing, man. And I get that. And it would absolutely be a stand-up, straightforward defense. But I'll give them credit on the defense. They changed the dynamic of how Lally was going to approach the case entirely because of the pretrial setting, because of the embracing of this conspiracy theory so full-throatedly. The defense has eliminated several portions or pathways for beyond a reasonable doubt. Remember, by it's a conspiracy, the defense no longer gets to claim accident or, some of these other very good factual issues. And I do a lot of work with reversing roles, trying to reverse roles, because that's how you get other people's perspective. If you are so certain this is how someone's going to view it, The only thing I can guarantee you is someone's not going to view it like that.
That's why I think there's still a pathway to conviction, because there are only two choices. One choice is he was hit by a car in the street. And the other choice is he was beaten up by the nephew and Brian Albert and the dog and a whole gang in the house, and then thrown on the front lawn. And then everybody in the city of Canton is purposefully committing perjury in support of it. Those are the only two choices.
And I said from day one, I looked at this case for 10 seconds and I said, a conspiracy 99 times out of 100 falls apart because people can't keep their fucking mouths shut. And as soon as you realize that there's a murder and it's a group, and all of a sudden you're hearing about this 15, 20 years and all that sort of thing, if the second case Rich just said was the case, somebody would have flipped by now. It's just
But I'll also add, if it's a 50-50 split between Rich's two positions, which were eloquently stated, and they are legit tied, the tie generally goes to the fear of wrongful conviction and an acquittal rather than the fear of a wrongful acquittal and a conviction. Because
I just wanted to go back for 1 second with a question for Rich. Well, for all three is because obviously you guys do a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking on these cases. When you're saying right off the opening argument, they kind of took a different angle than you would. In the world, in the legal world, does that tell you something about the defense? Because the defense, because usually, if your client was guilty, you might poke holes in, the sloppy police work or whatever it was to kind of take that stance right off the bat. Does that tell you something that maybe a regular person doesn't know?
I have two possible explanations. First of all, different lawyers handle cases differently, and I don't think I'm the smartest lawyer in the world, and somebody else has a better idea. But I think of two reasons why they strategically did that. Number one, because really being framed is the only explanation that gets them out of the guy being found dead with pieces of her tail light around him and his shoe knocked off right after a day of arguing. And then she shows up in the morning and says, I hit him in front of a bunch of witnesses. So they may have thought, we do have some good reasonable doubt. We've got this dopey Trooper Proctor with his terrible text messages.
Turtle
we
Boys.
Have bad investigation, but really we need more than that to get out of that. That's theory one. Theory two is I'm not sure a not guilty verdict is her end game. I think she wants a movie of the week. I think she wants a book deal. I think she wants a tour. And that's better supported by a story of having been framed than it is that she got off on reasonable doubt.
I also think, from right along with what Rich is saying, if you long arc this case, this trial is only a short segment of that long arc.
Good
and
God.
Section 1983 that is hanging out there, because there's at least going to be some sort of civil rights action. It's worth too much money, even just for a nuisance value, considering the behavior that these officers have literally testified to. It's the kind of evidence that if you can open up liability, juries get super pissed off. Juries hold, in a civil context, law enforcement to some pretty high standards that were clearly betrayed in some of these actions and lack of actions. So Rich is right. This is only part of the battle, but Karen needs the home run walkaway. And right now, while there is that pathway to conviction, we are not in that room. We do not know how much or little the jurors know. We just had one juror removed out of nowhere. That changes the dynamic. Right now, I feel that Karen is doing really well. And I think the interesting discussion is going to be, how hard should the defense push? Because there's deep value in, all right, Jerry, you've really seen enough. We're going to shut up, sit down, and let you guys get to business. Let's get out of here. That's going to become a big onus over the next week or two.
So the other piece is the difference in the beauty of our world and trial work is the difference between genius and madness is whatever the jury decides. So if the jury rules in their favor, they're geniuses, right? Great defense. And look, at the end of the day, I don't know if she is or isn't going to testify. I think she would be a horrible witness. I would love for her to testify. I can't imagine them letting her testify. I just can't. I can't see it.
No.
Which is maybe why she's now saying, well, it's up to the defense attorneys, because her cadre is going to be like, well, you're innocent. What, like we're about to, as a defense world, we're about to get some gold, because everybody who always said, man, if I were accused of something that I didn't do, you couldn't keep me off that stand. Now the narrative is going to be, well, of course she's not going to take the stand. Like her really good defense attorneys who are giving her advice have told her they haven't proven their case. So why help them out? This, that, and the other. I love it. I want potential jurors to be a little bit more skeptical about our system. And that is the benefit of this case.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to throw in one more thing, because I know that we could go on about this all day. Franz, you texted me last night something that Rich.
Oh, I didn't think we were supposed to talk about what he texted you late at night. Oh,
at 1 o'clock in the morning.
we recording?
You gotta watch those text messages, Franz. They can end up as exhibits in a court case.
Oh yeah,
Text like your lawyer's asking.
This one in particular was about what Buster Murdaugh seems to be stewing up. So Franz, do you wanna throw that in there?
So in the background of all this, Buster Murdaugh has filed civil suit against the documentary, whatever. And I know, Rich, you've actually looked at the complaint.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, if there's ever a case, not that Buster is like the prototype for this civil action, but if there's ever going to be a case where podcasters, true crime folks, defense attorneys get sued, because Karen's going to get sued too. If there's ever a case where somebody can get sued based on defamation, it's this case. But Buster has taken it to the max and has sued the document. I mean, which documentary has he sued? I don't know. I'll
tell you right now. He is. So the key one is Netflix. He has sued Netflix. He sued Warner Brothers Discovery, Warner Media Entertainment, Campfire Studios, Gannett Company. And then a couple, there's an individual in the mix, something called Blackfin. I don't know what that is. But I read the complaint, and basically they say all these folks put out in public accusations that Buster killed Stephen Smith. Is that his name? And, he's suing him for defamation. And the complaint looks viable to me. I don't see it getting thrown out on a motion to dismiss. It's obviously, if you accuse somebody of murder and they didn't do it, that is negligence per se.
Hey.
Buster Murdaugh, by the way, is not a public figure. So this is not an actual malice case. He's an individual. He's a young man living in South Carolina, and he's been trashed in these media outlets. So the question, Franz, is, does that mean they're going to come after every podcaster out there? I don't know. I mean, obviously, when you're doing a case like this, you're looking for big bucks. So most podcasters are not Netflix.
No,
unless
and my firm, I'll disclaim, we do civil work and criminal work. Criminal work, you get paid up front. Civil work is like gambling. You're hoping that everything lines up and that you can squeeze a nickel out of it, whether that's a trial, settlement, whatever it is. But if you don't receive money in most contingency, you got nothing, and that work was done for free or even at a substantial loss. That being said, I feel we're in line for a couple of dozen of these kind of suits. There was one that was, I believe, concluded last year where it was a little bit more personally involved, but it was a local blogger who had picked the fight with the person, and they sued. And because the blogger was an inherently commercial activity, and that's a key thing. There's a big difference from being a talking head who doesn't get paid versus someone who has a little brand or a business or derives any kind of financial benefit from the speech. That creates a really different analysis. And if you're going out there and lying on private citizens about automatically defamatory content, I think we're going to see a couple big hits and then a little bit of contraction in the, hey, I'm also doing a blog and a podcast. Certainly it's going to affect some of the notable commentators in the Karen Reed case, which
Right.
has way jumped the shark on citizen journalism.
You're gonna see
What if-
you're gonna see litigation, civil litigation in the Karen Reed case. I mean, everybody whose last name is Albert or McCabe has been trashed across
Absolutely.
the country by various people.
And what if the podcaster or social media influencer is employed by Karen and has some kind of contractual relationship? All of a sudden, it changes the entire. Yeah, because Karen has money. Turtle Boy may not have money. I don't know. I don't know Turtle Boy.
We don't even
But-
know if he's a real doctor or not.
Turtle Boy, he's a shell corporation.
Yeah, he is not a doctor. I unfortunately
Good
came
one.
into his orbit several years ago because I went to college up there, and a friend of mine was a newscaster, very attractive, skinny female, and something happened where he put her on blast. And this is like the super nicest lady ever, never heard a fly, and it was vicious. Her life, she basically got pushed out of public life because these random New England jerks. And I love me some jerk New Englanders. There's some Boston hate that I think is, but wow, inappropriate. And then if half of what I've read on Twitter actually happened, there's damages galore and crimes have been committed. End of story.
You have a realtor that out of nowhere suggests on Twitter that maybe Jen should be stabbed. I'm paraphrasing. Like, because she lied in some kind of Google search. Like, I don't even have words for that. And so all of a sudden, it's not just defamation, it's other emotional damages that are being caused by the behavior that is arguably being encouraged by followers. So look, I don't know if Buster's going to get a nickel. Buster may get a nickel.
Buster's related to enough people in the powers that be and the plaintiff's universe in a small state that takes this stuff really seriously, and it's a small community, that if there needed to be a case to open up IIED and defamation, that's a pretty good one. And Rich, do you guys have intentional infliction of emotional distress up there? Like down here, it's a theoretical cause of action, but it's worth 2 nickels. You don't get money for hurt feelings. This changes that.
Well,
I think this may be the national pivot for IIED, where there's finally a pathway to, hey, you want to make an IIED claim? This is how you do it.
Whether it's defamatory or not, the behavior online with respect to the Reed case has been atrocious.
Atrocious.
People making up stories about witnesses and innocent people, getting in fights, silly fights on online forums, calling each other names because their opinions about the case differ. Just have a different opinion. It's fine. Just have a different opinion.
And it spilled out literally to the physical courthouse itself, where they had to create these buffer zones. They had to do more extraneous, non-traditional, novel stuff for this case. That's frightening for anybody that loves an orderly and well-run criminal justice system.
Yeah,
Look, Josh and I are gonna go up and do trivia night at the Waterfall Bar and Grill. You're all invited.
Just gonna walk in and start streaming. Gonna have a list of questions. They'll be hilarious. I'll have some free prizes. I'm gonna write it off.
Oh, the hour goes by way too quick. For more Josh and Franz, maybe you need a lawyer. Maybe you sent some text messages at 1 o'clock in the morning that got you in trouble. Check out Joshua Schiffer at www.jdgrouplaw.com, on Twitter at LawyerSchiff, or just Google Joshua Schiffer. For an extra helping of Franz in Louisiana, visit www.borghartlawfirm.com, on Twitter at Borghardt Law, or just use the old international network to Google it or reach out to me. For more Showtime with Rich Schoenstein, and to find him on TV, follow him on Twitter at Lawful Riches, on Instagram at Lawful Riches. Go check him out on Facebook, and go check out his podcast, Law Brief, from Tartar, Krinsky, and Drogan.
Hey,
All right.
speaking
I
of
watched
that,
Game of Thrones yesterday. I got dragons on mine.
Rich, will you just, for anybody that I don't know, I believe most of our listeners will know exactly who you are. Tell us just a little bit about your firm. I know that you're a primarily criminal litigator. Tell us about what the rest of the firm does.
Well, I'm primarily a civil trial lawyer.
Oh,
I am co-chair, I am vice chair of our litigation department. Our firm, we're now over 100 lawyers. Main office is in New York, offices in New Jersey, Long Island, and Los Angeles. And we're full service. We real estate, corporate, tax, matrimonial, all kinds of stuff. So
What is your sorry, just to jump in, what is your favorite your favorite type of law to work on?
well, I like going to trial.
trial.
And when you're a civil trial lawyer, you don't get to do it as often, but I actually have had 6 trials in the last year, including,
Wow, that's a
including,
huge
including
caseload.
4 jury trials to verdicts. So, I've had a good year and, I have a lot on my docket right now.
That's a for people that that's a big caseload for civil.
Yeah.
That really is a phenomenal amount of work. And I guess for everybody, if you've got a legal issue, sounds like Rich's firm really does handle a broad variety general practice. So they're the ones that will, first of all, have an expert within that 100 lawyers on your maybe specific issue. Like there's somebody there that does admiralty law, or there's someone there that does a weird bond thing. That's the value of having that larger scope firm.
Yep.
Rich, I can't think it. You know, I've been a fan of yours since I got into, when they first asked me on TV. You were the first guest that I ever appeared with, and I'm a huge fan. And it's not just the hair.
I always worry saying that because you're like, I've looked up to you my whole life. And Rich would be like, fuck you. We're basically the same age. I'm not that much older than you.
I'm 27. Don't you forget it.
No, I appreciate you guys. I watch the two of you all the time on Court TV. You guys are great. You're at the top of the game. You're great on the social media. And more important than that, you've been really nice to me personally over the last couple of years, which I appreciate. So
Man.
glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a good thing we knew that ahead of time. It wasn't one of those things where Rich hates you too, and he was just hoping to get you on the podcast because Josh, you're a shitty lawyer, and fuck you, Franz.
We want that episode to find that lawyer, because that's just a totally different episode.
I'll try to find someone who hates you guys. I'll bring them on next time.
I got a couple.
Rich, Josh, Franz, thank you guys so much. That was awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you guys so much.